Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Contracts Unfolded. Continuing our boilerplate clause series, today we will talk about two more clauses which are the notice clause and the waiver clause. So let's begin this video by first understanding what is a notice clause. The notice clause defines how formal communication must happen between the parties under a contract. It is not about day-to-day calls, messages, or WhatsApp chats between the parties. Rather, it is about more significant communication such as termination notice, breach notices, payment demands, change in terms, or legal claims. This clause usually specifies three things. First, where the notice should be sent. Second, how it should be sent. And third, when it is considered received. Now, let's take a practical example to understand this clause. So in this example, a client wants to terminate the contract of a vendor for poor performance, and the contract requires the notice to be sent to a specific email for termination. However, in this particular scenario, the team of the client sent the termination notice to the project manager of the vendor because it is the project manager they used to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Now, later the vendor argued that they never received a proper formal communication of terminating the contract. Now, it is possible that the vendor may have seen the email. However, legally, it can still claim that it never received the proper termination notice. And this small nuance can delay the termination or even can make the termination ineffective at all. Let's take another situation. Here, the contract says termination requires 30 days notice from the date of receipt. Now, the client sent the notice on the 1st March. However, it was received by the vendor on the 5th March. And because of this, the termination period will begin from the 5th March and not from the 1st March. And this small detail can impact the timelines, payments, and even the exit obligations. So now let's understand what is a waiver clause. A waiver usually means giving up your legal right. And this clause deals with very day-to-day and practical business situations because to keep the business relationships healthy, businesses often allow flexibility, such as even though deadlines are missed, even though payments are delayed, businesses never complain about it. And now the question is, if you didn't enforce your right, then does it mean that you lose your right entirely? And this is exactly what the waiver clause talks about. Let's take a practical example to understand this. A payment clause in an agreement says that the payment shall be made within a period of 10 days. However, this business keeps on accepting payments again and again, even though the other party was making the payment after 20 days. Now, after a few months, this party decides that they want to receive timely payments, so they want to enforce the payment clause and they also want to penalize the payment delays. And upon this, the other party says, oh, but you were accepting regularly payments on 20 days. So you have waived your right of accepting the payments within 10 days. And now you just can't enforce your payment clause. Let's take another example to understand this. A vendor breaches a service level requirement multiple times and the client didn't take any action because they want to keep the business relationships going on. But later, the client decides to terminate the contract for breaches of services. Now, the vendor may argue, you knew about the breaches and you did nothing. So now you lose your right of terminating the contract because you have deliberately waived your right. Now, if there was no waiver clause in the agreements, then such kind of statements by the vendor, such as you waived your payment clause, you waived your termination right, might become very strong because a properly drafted waiver clause protects against these type of situations. It specifically talks about two things. First, delay or failure to enforce a right does not mean that I have waived the right. Second, any waiver must be in writing. In practical terms, it means that even though you were flexible earlier in enforcing your right, it does not mean that you cannot enforce them later unless you clearly gave up those rights in writing. Now, let's talk about some practical review points. So, first of all, when reviewing a notice clause, make sure if email is included as a valid form of notice or not, are the addresses correct and updated, and last, is the method of the delivery even realistic or not. And when reviewing a waiver clause, make sure to review if it clearly says waiver must be in writing or not. So this was all for this video. I hope you found this video helpful. If yes, then please share this video with other young contract drafting advocates and subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for your support and thank you so much for your time.